the fall come in around the middle of October. And I'm glad you have the catalog there, because if you see any special variety or hybrid that you'd like to have, if you'll let me know, I can order it for you ahead of time. And
No, he was leaving it for you to look at.
I'm leaving it for you to look at. So there are many varieties there. Everybody in their lifetime should have an Aphrodite. This thing produces blooms that are over 8 inches across. And usually this size bulb of 30 plus centimeters will put up 3 and sometimes 4 flower scapes. So you might want to consider that one, and any others that you'd like, let me know, and I'll do my best to get them included on our fall order. I did have a nice pad for you to write down, but it's soaking wet now. Also, last year, seed crop, I still have quite a few, and I've reduced them. They're about 50% good for germination. And if you want to browse through there, you might find some varieties that you'd like to have. I don't think you'd get any better than 50% germination. So if you get 100 seed, about 50 little sprouts is about all you can expect.
And how long would it take them to sprout?
I'll show you in my lecture on that question. I found that it's usually best if you can hold your questions till we get through. If you don't, you'll make me miss what I'm wanting to say. If you buy a forest bulb, that's one that has been dormant for a period of time, it's good to soak them a little bit to get the roots rejuvenated. This one was almost soaked from the rain. So all you do is wet the roots and leave it in a container for about 2 hours, and that'll help it to draw enough moisture to kick it off, so to speak. And then after you do that, you'll want to plant your bulb with an Amaryllis so that about the top half or the top quarter of the bulb is above ground. And these are very hardy plants that can take full sun. You can grow them in the shade. The shade only slows them down a little, but they will take full sun. So see how that's protruding above the soil? Okay. And after it's been planted for 2 or 3 weeks, then it's going to put up a flower scape, like so. And it depends upon the hybrid. Some are early with their flower scape. Some put their leaf scapes up first, and then comes the flower scape. But this one was kind of simultaneous deal. So we're looking at about 3 or 4 weeks growth after having been planted with this one. So the next thing you can expect is a nice bloom. This is a hybrid by the name of Baby Star. We've got so many Baby Stars down there, I've got to reduce the price just to get rid of them. So take some home with you. I think we came down at least a couple of dollars to $8 on a pot. So you see what has occurred is we not only have a beautiful bloom, maroon stripes, green throat, white star burst coming out to the end of the tepal, but we have the mechanism for reproduction here, which is the stigma. Can you see that white stigma? You ladies are gardeners, you know this stuff already. And to pollinate it, if the bee don't get to it first, You want to make sure that it's pollinated. You can just break off a filament. The anther contains the pollen, and just apply it to the stigma, as I've done. If you're interested in cross-pollinating, you can take a different hybrid, and I would snip off the anthers of this plant and then apply the pollen from your second one that you want to cross with to the stigma. And by clipping off the anthers, that kind of discourages the bees from lighting there and messing up your intentions. So, God designed this plant so that once it's pollinated, the stigma has a tract that goes to the back of the blossom and an ovum here at the rear of the blossom begins to develop, and it's always a tripod ovum. And if it's pollinated correctly and everything is doing right, then this is going to start to swell in about a week after it's pollinated, and it will continue to grow until it reaches a ripe size. I didn't bring a very large plant to show, but this one is starting to grow already. It's natural that the blossom will fade away, and as it continues to grow, it will literally die and fall off.
And then you take the seeds.
Then we've got seed developed.
I know, but she's so.
That's all right. It's nice to be interrupted a little.
He knows we're not asleep.
That's right. So this one is fully developed. This is a great, tremendous Cybister by the name of Bogota. It's one of the larger Cybisters. The Cybisters are a variety that have spider-like tepals. They're thin. You can see some in the catalog there.
Right here.
Yeah. Pass that around, let
This
them
is the
see.
Cybister.
And I think I only have a couple of forest bugs down there. They're not very large either. But I may have one or two potted plants on this one. Bogota. The South American name, right?
Yeah.
Bogota. That's where these developed from. Originally was South America. The Europeans came over. They harvested a few of them, carried them back, and like those nosy English do, they just started playing around with them and hybridizing. And that was the industry that developed there first in England. And I guess the Dutch saw big time profit and possibilities with that, and they took it over many years ago, and they do most of the world's supply of Amaryllis bulbs. However, the Israelis are now selling Amaryllis bulbs in is it Colombia, South America? Peru. The Peruvians are in the business. South Africa, so we've got quite a few big producers of Amaryllis, which is a little competition, but not enough to lower the price much. So this one's about ready to pop open, and when it pops open, see, I'm forcing it along. See that little pop there? It will pop out on its own, and then the air will get in, and it will start to dry. Eventually, the whole shell pops open. And God made a very interesting little plant spreader with the way He designed the seed. Let's pass that around for everybody. You can see they look kind of like a D.
Yeah.
Would you call that a D?
Yeah.
D seed. So that's not the seed. The seed is a very little tiny speck inside
inside that.
the mechanism that the wind picks up and blows it everywhere.
Okay.
So that's the way God designed this seed to get scattered. So what I'm doing is carrying you through the reproductive cycle of this Amaryllis. So the next, we've got seed. We got seed, we can get plants, right? So there are two ways you can do that to get plants. Well, I bring my water jug.
It's right here.
On the table.
Thank you.
That was a test, wasn't
It
it?
was a test. Well, so what you can do is get just regular tap water, and you can float your seed, and they will sprout, as I've done here. It's good to put a covering over it, a translucent covering, let a little light get in there. And if we are in the 80s temperature-wise, then they'll sprout in about 2.5 to 3 weeks at the most. It's easy to get to have fungus, mold rather, grow on the seed. So you can rinse them off and put them back in there, or you can just put a drop or two of Clorox as a help. They can withstand the Clorox. So that's one way to sprout. Of course, this is more labor intensive. If I don't have any that are floated here to show you, I should have thought of that. But they will produce a root, and a little bubblet, tiny bubblet will start to form, and it will put a shoot up. So you can let them continue into water until the shoot is about 1.5 inches or 2 inches tall. And then they're large enough you can handle and plant them individually. That's the cheapest possible way to get Amaryllis that I know of. So, I don't think there's any need to pass that around. You can see what I've done. And the frog is enjoying the lecture, can you tell?
Not in the water. I just planted them.
Well, you just took the seeds and put them in the dirt.
Did they grow?
Oh, okay. I don't even know what happened to the seeds on my plant.
So the other way you can treat the seed is you can use just a potting soil with or topsoil, or do little sand, get some sand so that the soil is not boggy. If it gets boggy, the seed will rotten and you won't get any production off of it. So you want to lightly, remember that little tiny bump inside the seed, that's how big that seed is. So you want to treat it accordingly, just barely a little soil on the top of it. Water it in good, and you can water it again in a week or so. Put it in the shade, and if you too much bogginess, it will rotten and you will not get any production. These are not fast growers. These I planted last summer, believe it or not, and they grew toward the end of summer, maybe early fall, so they didn't grow much through the winter. But even if under best conditions, this represents about a year's growth, this largest one here. So I've got 3 more years of growth before I'm going to get a bloom off of that. So this is a long time project. I suggest if you have a garden of Amaryllis outside, just to scatter your seed out there and let them produce on their own, and if they come up and grow, good. If you're after just specific varieties, then handle them with pots and baby them, like keeping them watered properly and fertilized properly, and still you're looking at 3 years to 4 years before you're going to get a bloom. So that's pretty much the cycle. I think I might take questions now if you have them.
How long did it take to grow the big bulbs?
About 4 years.
Or they need, by the time they start blooming, you have to have the big bulb to produce that, right?
Yes, this bulb is about a 4-year-old bulb.
Okay.
And see, it's starting to put up a flower scape.
Yeah. Okay.
Fertilizer wise, they do not require a lot of nitrogen, so a 5, 10, 15 granulated fertilizer will work good. I fertilize in the early spring and about the middle of summer, early summer to middle of summer. So 2 fertilizers a year is what we do. You can go monthly on a potted plant would be all right, I think. When you plant Amaryllis, the big enemy is overwatering. You cannot let boggy, they will not live in boggy conditions. The roots will rot. These roots have been trimmed back, and this is not a very good example of a basal plate, but this is, the basal plate is the part of the bulb that produces roots and feeds the plant, the bulb. And it has scales very much like an onion. They may be in the onion family, I don't know, but they behave very much the same as an onion. And boy, do they ever smell when they're rotten.
I had one for Christmas, and then when it died, I cut it off and left it in the pot. And now I got a new thing coming up about this big already.
Right, that's all you gotta do.
So is it gonna grow again, or?
Yes. Let me point out that if you're trying for seed, then,
No, I'm not gonna do that.
okay, but someone might try for seed, and it takes a lot of energy
Yeah,
for a plant
right.
to produce seed, so it might not bloom again next year. It might skip a year before it blooms. And even if it doesn't make seed and it's a heavy bloomer, it might take a second year's rejuvenation before it produces a bloom. But larger bulbs normally will bloom yearly or annually if they're fertilized properly.
Now, the dirt you were talking about, it would go up to where the, where it
Halfway,
starts to get.
halfway.
Yeah.
We want
Not
about,
like that.
we want about that much of
Okay.
it above the top of the soil.
Okay.
And just tamp that soil in real good, and use a pot that has at least 1.5 inches or so of root growth space.
Now, if they are very deep, would that cause them not to bloom? 'Cause mine
They
will
will,
not
they will
bloom.
eventually work up scapes and both flower scapes and leaf scapes. They will eventually do that, but they do not do as well. That was a problem we ran into. We were planting them too deep to start with, and they're doing much better now that we don't plant them so deep.
What would be another cause for them not to bloom? I have some that just will not bloom.
I have people ask me questions, that same question all the time, and I can only guess. It could be
And it's the sun.
a lack of moisture, so that it's retarded the plant. And the second thing is that you could have rotten roots if it's been overwatered and in boggy soil. And they do require quite a bit of fertilizing. So a lack of fertilizer could be your problem. That's about my best guesses.
So if it's, but it has the leaf, you know, it has
Uh-huh.
the blade, whatever, beautiful blades, but just no flower.
It never has flowered.
Well, it did when we first planted them there, but then after a while, they just quit blooming.
How long has it been since
Oh,
it
gosh.
bloomed?
Oh, probably, I'd say 6 years.
Oh,
So, now I have, one that's in a pot like that, sitting in the same area, but it's not in the ground, and right now it's got blooms like this, but
okay.
it's in
I
the
dig
pot.
1 or 2 up and check the root system and see if if you got healthy roots there. Amaryllis can be dug up, left outdoors for 2 days in the sun. You plant it the next day and it'll survive all that. They're very hardy. So dig up a couple of them and look at the roots and see what's going on there. That's my suggestion. Another possibility, for those of you who have Amaryllis, you might want to harvest your offsets. I've bought a glove for this very purpose. I should have got a new glove. Look how stingy we are using these old gloves.
David would be proud.
I save mine when I go to the doctor's office, I make them give them to me. I do.
Well, I got a box, if you ever run out, I use it.
Flexible to work with and garden.
Okay.
I should start
If
wearing
I
them.
use them too, but I'm hold on.
My terminology for an amaryllis is that it is a clandestine plant. It grows in clumps. I'll bet those Europeans who found them in South America and Central America would dig up big clumps of amaryllis. That's my guess. Because that's what ours want to do. They want to put off offsets, as they're called. And as you can see, this one has quite a few offsets. And I wanted to show you how to harvest those. I usually have a bucket of water to wash them. This one fell off on its own. Look at that. These are tied into the mother bulb, and it's easy just to kind of rock them back and forth and get some roots with the baby.
Yeah, look at those stacked up.
Put potash on your amaryllis bed. That'll help the roots to grow and thrive. I put a lot of potash on a bed we had years ago, and one bulb produced 17 offsets.
Wow.
That's something.
Now, would that be the
Now
same
you
as
can take a
putting your
knife if it
ashes?
gets to be real stubborn and just chip some of the basal plate along with the baby. Well, look there, I still got one without a knife.
Yeah.
So, then you can pot these or plant them in your garden. And that's a good way to get in the amaryllis business if you're not careful. That's what occurred with us. We kept getting those offsets. So that's a good, inexpensive way to increase your garden.
And how long will it be before they'll have a bloom?
This is a much faster process. That's a good question. This is representative of about 2 years growth. So it's only got a couple of years to go, and it'll be a bloomer.
Now, if you have a fireplace and you have ashes, would that be something you could do? You could put those ashes on your amarilla bed?
Yes, that's exactly what we do.
I need that.
Thank you.
I did that.